Hi there, my name is Keith and welcome to My View from the 40. Tomorrow night, the Ottawa RedBlacks invade Tim Hortons Field and take on the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the latest installment of Friday Night Football. It's going to be a pretty interesting game as we see these two Eastern teams clash for the second time this season. The first time being earlier this year when the Hamilton Tiger Cats upended the new RedBlacks by a score of 33-23. Now this game has a lot of interesting implications. On the one hand, we're looking at a Hamilton team that's tied for first place alongside the Toronto Argonauts and the Montreal Alouettes as they vie for that crucial first place seed. But on the other side, you've got the dismal RedBlacks with a 2-12 record who are still looking for a little bit of respect as we come towards the end of the season. Now, I have been told that I am sometimes a little too kind to the RedBlacks, and sometimes I go with my heart, not my head. Well, if I was to go with my head, I would think to myself that this would be a pretty easy win for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They're 5-2 at home, whereas the RedBlacks are 0-7 on the road, and that would be true. But let's dig a little deeper. Let's look at last week's games. Now, if we were to look at last week's games, and if you were to look at just the scores, you would think to yourself, well, Ottawa had the rougher end of the stick, losing to BC 41-3. I would submit to you, though, after coming off a pretty embarrassing loss to the Tiger Cats, the BC Lions had a lot to prove, and prove it they did with the 41-3 ass-whooping of our RedBlacks. However, let's look at the Hamilton loss. Now, they lost 33-32. They lost 33-32 against the Argonauts. But here's the interesting thing. Toronto came in the fourth quarter and scored 21 points against the Tiger Cats. The Tiger Cats allowed 21 points in one quarter. So which loss is worse? Basically being beaten out of the gate, as the RedBlacks were, or an absolute collapse towards the end of the game? I don't necessarily think either one of these teams are going to be going into Tim Hortons Field on a high tomorrow, which makes for a very entertaining game. Throw in the fact that Henry Burris was the last quarterback to lead Hamilton to a Grey Cup appearance, and it makes for a very interesting evening. Now, there are those that'll say, you know what, the Eastern Division has been pretty sloppy and I don't really care. But you should, because over the last few weeks, the Eastern Division has turned itself around. It's done a full 180 and has actually gotten back the respect that they deserve. A couple months ago, you thought to yourself, well, you know, the crossover team from the West going into the East, they're going to have a cakewalk. Well, right now, we're not necessarily guaranteed that there will be a crossover team. And quite frankly, if you're a Western team, do you really want to go to any of these Eastern cities and play right now? Because they've shown that they've pulled up their socks, they've strapped on their cleats, and they're ready to play. So as far as tomorrow's game is concerned, common sense would probably dictate that Hamilton would win the game. But you know what? There's just something about these pesky RedBlacks that I can't shake. So I'm going to go with the RedBlacks in an upset. Is that me going with my heart? Maybe. But you know what? Still haven't gotten over the fact that I'm ridiculously excited that football's back in the capital. And the fact that Ottawa came so dangerously close to beating Hamilton in the first game, I could smell an upset. I'm looking forward to being at the game tomorrow night with my buddy Nick and checking it out. As always, you can check me out on Twitter at CFL_fan, Facebook.com/WhittyWhittier, and WhittyWhittier.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. Who do you think's going to win tomorrow night? Feel free to tell me what you think. I'd love to hear it. And as always, I'm Keith, and that's my view from the 40.